Alright guys, Adam Patterson here of course, and I figured I would kind of come on as I'm doing the dishes here, just to speak to you guys a little bit about kind of my path to entrepreneurship, who I am today, and kind of how I ended up in a position of, owning my own freight brokerage company, and just kind of what led me to this spot. So the journey kind of begins back in, high school or whatever. When I was probably 14, I started my first company just to make money, which was landscaping, and I did it with a couple buddies of mine. And we just pretty much posted out our services on Craigslist, and really the only people who hired us were local folks, elderly folks who were probably retired or whatever. And what they really just enjoyed seeing was that some young kids were willing to get out and work for some money. Is pretty much basically all that was. And it kind of taught me a lot. It was hard work. We used to do it in the summertime. It's not like we were doing it in the winter. So it was hot, and it was freaking back-breaking labor because it's landscaping work. So you're down, bent over, pulling out weeds, putting in new putting in new mulch, and just doing a bunch of things that probably not most 14-year-old kids are doing. Especially because you don't really have licensing to work at 14, I don't think, or maybe that's the age where you could get it. Don't quite remember. And that was pretty good. It was fun during the summertime. It was better hourly wage than I was making anywhere else, especially because we weren't paying taxes on it. We were just getting paid in cash. And it was more fun than, going to a place of work. I also was like a referee for soccer leagues, like rec soccer leagues in my town. And I was getting paid like, I don't know, $10 a game, which is like the equivalent of $10 an hour. And then I would have to stay there for 3 hours at night on like a Saturday or a Sunday, waste my entire weekend day. And I was just reffing these like little kids playing soccer. And, people would get mad at me, parents would get mad at me because a little kid would do a handball or something. And I didn't want to call it because it was unintentional. And they're like, you gotta call it, ref. And so it was just, it was more fun than that, just having like one group of people, like one paying client at a time, who would come out and just kind of check on your work and look at it and be like, looks good. So I thought that was a lot more enjoyable than the reffing of soccer leagues, which I never did again. I thought that was absolutely terrible. It was not worth the money. From there, you kind of fast forward, a couple of years actually, till I was maybe like 17. I had been doing the landscaping there for a little while, and what kind of made that more fun is I would do it for my parents for free. Like I would go out and I would do our yard for free because I just enjoyed being outside. So it was more enjoyable, just doing the landscaping work. And then doing it with friends just made it all that much better. Fast forward a few years, and landscaping was great, but I couldn't do it in the winter. So once like fall season was over and I had gotten rid of people's like leaves out of their yard or whatever, it was usually like I was shut down until summertime came around again, or spring came around again. People wanted like yards mowed or whatever. So I got myself a real job. I worked at a restaurant and I hated it. But it was the start of me getting real jobs. From there I moved to working at a grocery store. I was not a cashier or anything like that. I worked in prepared food, so I was the guy that if you wanted like a $6 meal or a $7 meal of the prepared foods or whatever, I would be the guy that put that together for you at the counter. And that was great. I worked a lot. So in high school I was pretty much working a full-time job there. I was working about 36 hours, 38 hours a week, which is the max that you were allowed to because they didn't want to pay overtime. They had some policy against it. I would have worked more if I could, but in that time, I was a senior in high school working there, and I gave up a lot of hanging out because I was working on Friday nights, and then I remember on senior skip day in my senior year of high school, we all went to the beach, and for some reason, I accepted a shift that day, which made no sense to me. I accepted a shift working like midday, and it was still a school day, so it was really annoying that I even did this. And I had to leave my own senior skip day, and I missed the party afterwards, and we all went to the beach. And so I had to leave that early, and leave all my friends, and leave my girlfriend at the time while we were at the beach. And I went and worked. And I could have called off that day. I should have. Looking back on it, I would have probably now, looking back on it. But back then, it was like I gave my word. My word is my... Like, words are the only thing that I have, and I want to be a reliable person, so I freaking just went and did it. And then we kind of get into more of the entrepreneurship journey. So the grocery store that I worked at was called Wegmans. I lived in New York at the time. And we didn't have Wegmans where I went to college when I first started. I went to the University at Albany, and so I just didn't work in my first 6 months or so of being at college. I just didn't have a job, it was fine. I was just living off of savings and spending the money that I did have, and I had a meal plan, of course, and all this. But I wanted to make money, and I came across a friend who had an idea, which was like, we should just start social media accounts, particularly on Instagram at the time, because they were talking about how like YouTubers would get paid off of like AdSense or whatever. So it was literally like, what was told to me was like, if you just grow an account to like 10,000 followers, you pretty much just start making money off of it. And I was like, that's interesting, and it's also something I can do from sitting in my dorm room or sitting anywhere, so I'm going to figure this out. And that's what I did. I figured out how to grow social media accounts, and I ended up growing like a social media brand. It was called High Class. And I would be high class, and then whatever the account was based off of. So it was houses, homes, properties, fashions, motors, cars. Just a lot of things to do with like high class. It was all about like suits. It was all about nice houses. It was all about watches. It was all about nice cars. And it was just this brand of like luxury that I was looking for. And I did that. I started off with the fashion and the suit pages because I'm really into looking nice. I didn't really believe in dress for success, but I did believe that dressing in a suit was pretty cool. And I always wanted that. I thought at the time that I wanted to be some form of investment banker on Wall Street or a stockbroker or something. They all wore suits. I liked suits. And I just appreciated when people dressed well. Like, I liked when my professors wore suits opposed to like dress down and just wore a collared shirt. And then anybody who I ever spoke to who was like successful in something, I would always take them a bit more serious if they were wearing a suit with a nice watch and some nice shoes, opposed to, you know, wearing what I wear on a day-to-day basis, which is like a t-shirt or a polo or a button-up and some jeans. So those are just things that I thought about, and that's what I wanted to get into. So I grew these social media followings, and I got somewhere. I mean, I started growing accounts, and then I started selling advertising on accounts, and it was usually somewhere around like 20,000 followers where I would start to actually sell the advertising on these accounts. And it wasn't like I was selling anything for a lot of money. It was like, if you wanted a story post, it was like $8, $5, $10. If you wanted to post that sat on my actual page, it was like $25. I can't remember the actual pricing at this time, but I used to do that for a little bit, and then I would sell the accounts as well. So I had my bigger accounts that I grew to somewhere between 80,000 and 250,000 followers, and I would sell the advertising for. And then I would start these smaller accounts, and I would grow these ones, and I would grow them to like 20,000, 50,000, and I would sell the account itself for just like a lump sum of money. So in that year, I probably made somewhere between like $6,000 to $10,000 just sitting in my dorm room, growing accounts, selling advertising, and selling accounts, which was pretty cool. That was really like the impetus for my entrepreneurial journey, is because I started to grow these accounts, learn that I could just sell advertising, and then I started actually having people who would want like their link in my bio permanently, and they would pay me like more dollar amounts per month or whatever. It was like, I don't know, $100 per month or something like that. But when you're not working a job that you have to go in and spend your time for, and you can build as many of these accounts as you want, and it all takes the same amount of time, and then someone just pays you to have their link in your bio, it was pretty cool.
And then I also got reached out to and became an affiliate marketer for a couple of different brands. One of them was called Kaiser, and it was like wristbands and like beaded wrist accessories and things. And they also sold watches, so I would get like a little kickback if someone purchased one of those through my link, which was cool. But I thought that was so cool because I was just sitting in my dorm room, growing social media accounts, and like I could just make money doing it. And so where all my friends had to, ask their parents for more money or something because they ran out in their savings account, or they had to go and work jobs and work for the student council or work for the student union, I was just selling advertising and selling social media accounts that I just knew how to grow. And that was kind of like the beginning of the entire journey, because it was like, if I can do this, I can pretty much do anything. Like I just learned how to make money. I just realized that you don't have to go and work a job with your hands and use your time to make money all the time. Like you can actually front load the time and then get paid on the back end. So that's kind of where the journey began. And then I did that throughout my entire college career. And when I got into like my latter half of college, which I only went for 4 years, I tried to grow like my own brand, because I realized like, oh, if all these people are using my accounts to advertise their stuff and they're getting paid and they want to keep paying me, like maybe it would be worth it for me to try and learn how to grow a website and sell my own products. So I tried doing that in the fitness space, where I thought that I was going to also take my life after realizing that I wasn't going to go into accounting, which is what I went to school for. And I wasn't going to end up in New York City because none of these firms wanted to hire me for an internship or anything like that. So I didn't end up in New York City. So I thought like, oh, maybe I could go be a personal trainer or whatever and do that online and sell products to go along with it. So I ended up trying to make a fitness apparel brand while creating myself as a personal trainer. And then I also formed a partnership with tigerfitness.com to have like a supplement link, so you could purchase your supplements from me. And then, what's everybody calling me right now? That didn't really go anywhere. I got a few sales. I didn't do any like Facebook advertising or anything like that, or any paid marketing. It was all organic. So I got sales and I drove traffic for sure. I did pretty well, but nothing significant to the point where it was like, wow, I've really just created something here. Sorry. So that was something. And then I just kind of continued on. I left college and I went and just immediately, I left my job working at the grocery store because I still had it. They didn't fire me because I went off to college or anything like this. So I worked there for the summertime while I was getting my first job. And then I went and I got a job right in sales right when I got out of college. And my job at the grocery store at that time, before that, I had also been a salesperson. I was selling organic produce. I was what was called an organic farm ambassador, and I would pretty much set up a stand, like the little taste testing stands in stores, and I would just try and convince people that eating organic and buying organic was better for them than buying traditional, which was a lot of fun. I had to learn a lot about produce. I had to learn a lot about what it meant to be organic and non-organic, like free of GMOs, everything like this. Which was cool. It was all useful information to learn in my life. But I left that and I got a job working in B2B sales for a networking company. And pretty much what I was going for was I just wanted to develop my skills, because I knew I wanted to go into sales. And I knew that from being in high school when I spoke to my friends' parents, who were all very successful, had very nice homes, and all seemed like they were comfortable, could go out, spend money, and not really worry about it. Everyone worked in sales or they owned their own company. And when they owned their own company, they were still working in sales. So it was like, that's the only way to set your own income. Hang on. Hello?
Hey.
So I'm trying to pick back up where I left off. I think I just got done speaking about trying to become a personal trainer, grow like a fitness apparel brand, and then partnering with Tiger Fitness for supplements and such. So I tried doing that. Like I said, it was all organic. I didn't do any Facebook posting in terms of like paid advertising or anything. Everything was organic through my own social medias. I had a personal one. And then, of course, I started the apparel brand one and tried to make a real brand out of it. 3 different types of messaging, and then just like short form content, and a lot of just like scraping the internet for things to post, which was, it's all good stuff. So I did that, and then I was working in sales, I think is where I left off, and I really wanted to grow the skill of being in sales. I had done a lot of reading on it. I'd done a lot of business reading in my past. Like, I understood what it meant to have a business. I didn't understand how to choose a winning product. And it was also, social media was more difficult to me because I'd never wanted to be a person who was, like, known. I always wanted the company, the brand to be the main factor opposed to, like, me, myself being someone in the spotlight. So like even now, what I do is it's still B2B. Yes, I'm known. I am an actor. I have agency in it. But it's not like I'm some type of famous on social media, can't walk down the street type of person. So I didn't really want that. You know what I mean? I didn't really want to be famous on social media, mainly because I probably just didn't want to get trash talked by anybody. Now I don't really care so much. And I do have a social presence, but, I never wanted that. So I wanted to get into sales because I knew that through sales, you had the ability to control your own income, and it was more about the work that you were willing to put in rather than, like, you just had to go and spend time doing something. You can always sell another service. You can always bring on another customer. As long as you have something that's scalable, like what I do now with services, so it's very scalable. If I can't do it any further by myself, I just add more people and then I can sell it again. And you need something that's scalable like that, so you can scale products very easily because you purchase more, you manufacture more, and you sell more. So everything just needed to be scalable. But I really wanted the skill of sales because at the end of it all, say one of my businesses failed or whatever, I could rely on being a salesperson for a company to still make a very good living. So I was okay with that outcome, and I thought, okay, skill-wise, I know I want to make a lot of money. I know that you can make good money if you go into like an operational role or something on that side. But where the majority of the money comes from is in the creation of it. So it's sales and company owner. Those are the top earners. And then it's like C-suite people who usually are some type of sales, or they've worked 25, 20 years to get to where they are. Unless they were the ones who started the company, but they still worked all that time. So I figured the quickest avenue to get to where I wanted to be was through sales. Which is why I got into sales. So the business that I got into of networking equipment, it wasn't, direct to consumer. It's not selling insurance. It's not, trying to take money from a person for the most part. It's more calling a company and trying to make sure that they have needs and that you can create a solution that fits those needs. And in that, you take your margin, which is your profit, and you get paid off of your profit, it was great. And it taught me a lot about sales. It taught me a lot about relationship building. It taught me patience, or at least it started to. I was very young and I didn't know anything about the space, so I couldn't really call somebody and say like, "Oh, tell me what you need in your network here for your CMTS system or your routing system or whatever." It was more so I just had to call and speak to people and make sure that they would like me enough to call me and know that we had the resources in place where if they did call me, we could help. I couldn't necessarily talk to them about any of the technology, but we had the people here who could. And it was more so about me opening up those relationships. And that taught me a lot about sales. It taught me a lot about, you don't want to sell $5, $10, $20 products and try and make 5 or 10% off of them because you're going to make $1 and you have to sell thousands of them every day to make anything. So you want to sell longer deal cycles that might be one big deal that would probably get you, $100,000 in profit or something like this off of one deal, and you maybe have like 10 of them in a year, and then your profit margin or what you get paid out is 15%.